Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
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 Hello again and welcome to the program Agriculture on the Move. I am Phillip Sydney. In today's program, we will be discussing financing agricultural and fishing projects in Saint Lucia. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you to my guests. To my right is Garvin Francis and Nigel Faisal. Both of you are from the Saint Lucia Development Bank. Thank you for coming, gentlemen. Garvin, give us a brief introduction as far as you're concerned. What's your role at the bank?
Okay, essentially I'm the relationship specialist for agriculture. As indicated earlier, relationship specialist, the dichotomy of the name essentially represents, as a loans officer, you normally have to forge a relationship with your clients. Mm-hmm. And from the specialist standpoint, generally, the officers responsible for lending, they would have some sort of technical background in the various areas. So the Saint Lucia Development Bank, for example, we would have the housing department, we would have education, we would have businesses, services, industry, tourism, and of course agriculture. Okay. Now, since I facilitate agricultural loans, I do have a technical background in agriculture. Okay. So hence the name for relationship specialist agriculture. Great. All right.
Okay. Mr. Faisal, what about you?
I am here in the capacity of the relationship specialist for the Youth Enterprise Equity Fund, which is sort of a small venture capital fund which is aimed at empowering younger people ages 18 to 35 to get their projects off the ground. My background is really economics, okay, and international finance, but I have a passion towards entrepreneurship and to a lesser extent venture capital.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Okay, the Central Development Bank, of course, in time immemorial was the agricultural bank, as I remember some years ago. What's the mandate of the bank as far as agriculture and, of course, financing the fishing sector is concerned?
Okay, as it relates to the mandate, we would recognize, and even from an economic standpoint, that we recognize that agriculture forms a very critical aspect of our economy, especially when we look at it in terms of rural development. Correct. A significant amount of small farmers and so on depend on agriculture as a form of livelihood. So essentially, we see our role in terms of trying to facilitate the whole aspect of rural development and even agriculture on a whole and its broader contribution to the economy. So our mandate essentially is to provide the financing to facilitate any aspect of agricultural development. Okay.
You mentioned financing, looking at young people coming into agriculture, and the ministry at this juncture, there is a youth agri-entrepreneurial program coming on stream. Yes. How do you all fall in this?
Well, the SLDB has been slated to be a financier, in the sense that if the youth involved in the project submit business plans, meet the criteria, we again are mandated to lend to them. So I think our role is, again, in keeping with the youth, to empower the young entrepreneurs who have the zeal and the character and the technical ability to get involved in agriculture and make a contribution towards food security and continuity and succession, and even modernization in the agricultural sector.
The way forward now, for example, if anybody wants to come into agriculture and they decide to face you for a loan, what are the criteria?
All right. Essentially, when persons approach us, it normally starts off with an interview process, whether it be via telephone or whether it be a case where that individual comes in, makes an appointment or come in to see me. And I would generally tend to have a rough idea as to what it is that individual is looking at, what they want to get involved in terms of the experience in the area that they're seeking to get involved in, well, I should say subsector. Based on that, depending on the experiences, whether the person is experienced, whether they have the capacity to carry out what it is that they have in hand in terms of their actual contribution towards the project. Based on the assessment, the initial interview process, we normally go out and have a look and see exactly what is the intended project. Whether it's already established project, we go and have a look at it to see what is happening already on the ground and in terms of their needs. Because you find situations where persons may come in and they may propose a project. Now, sometimes you visit the site and the site you visit doesn't necessarily lend itself to the nature of the project they intend to do. So you have challenges like that. And even from the operational standpoint, sometimes when you go out, like I mentioned earlier, that one of the strong points of the SLDB in terms of the officers, that the officers have some sort of background in the areas. So the site visit is important to initiate the entire process. So sometimes we may go out and we may find a situation where the person's needs doesn't necessarily match what. So we'll have to sometimes tailor. So one of the strong points of SLDB is in terms of lending with education. So we go in there and we work with the individual and determine, all right, well, this is exactly what it is that you need, and then we start to work around tailoring what it is that that person would require.
Do you all, I know in the past, SLDB had field officers. Okay, they were actually out there like extension officers working with the farmers from the banking standpoint. They would liaise with extension officers also. Do you all have a fleet of extension officers or field officers out there working hand in glove with the farmer?
Yes, in the sense that we would, as indicated, that we normally carry out the initial field visit assessments. And then we'd also do project monitoring.
Okay.
So as the project is implemented, that we have to go and visit and assess the projects as they gradually develop. So the answer to your question would be yes.
Okay. A young person coming up to you and wanting to get into whatever area of agriculture and maybe the fishing sector. Let's say fishing, because I know, okay, your background is in agriculture to a certain extent. How do you approach a guy who's coming into and he wants to buy a boat and he wants to go into fishing?
Okay, so in terms of the YEEF, which is what I'm representing, it is an equity investment.
Okay.
Which is it's really not a loan. We're buying up a stake in your business, and you pay us a dividend annually. Okay, so it is treated differently from a loan in that regard, and as such, you really have to come up with a viable business idea. So maybe it might not be enough. It might not suffice in a sense that just acquiring a boat and going out there and fishing in a traditional manner might not fit the criteria for the EIF. We might need you to probably go the extra mile and propose a solution to a problem, you know. So say, for example, you want to provide some service that does not yet exist, but it can add value to the fishermen who do go out there and you know, and try to catch fish. So the EIF is a very different facility. But to answer your question more directly, that individual would have to come with a business plan. And so we need to see in the merits of the business plan that it's viable, one, and that there's some promise to it. So it's a need that exists. It's fulfilling a need, basically. The other thing is that, of course, that individual would need to be between the ages of 18 to 35, and that individual would have to display a strong sense of character, commitment, and also have some technical ability, you know, to be competent in whatever it is that they're venturing out to do. So I think, you know, like the loan, it's similar in the criteria, but in terms of how it operates, it's a little different.
Okay, you're watching Agriculture on the Move. We are due for a break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Agriculture, one of the pillars of St. Lucia's economic development, creating opportunities for earning a living for the farmer and his family. From the field to the kitchen, the St. Lucians are finding creative ways of using fruits, crops, and vegetables grown locally, from local seasonings to special brews, from aquaculture to the cultivation of local herbs for export. A strong agriculture industry strengthens the economy. The country needs your support, so buy local.
Welcome back to the program, Agriculture on the Move. Yeah, Garvin, you wanted to say something concerning the program?
Yeah, just in terms of just wanting to point out from the youth perspective as to, I mean, as an as a loans officer dealing with agricultural loans, we see a lot of creativity in terms of young persons coming and visit me. And they have the drive, they're looking at new research, they're familiar with the technology out there, they can go online, look at YouTube, explore different technologies, and look in that direction basically to implement the various projects and so on. One of the shortfalls, however, is the support as it relates to research.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of new technology, which is what basically the youth would try to basically encourage among young persons, because young persons coming into this sector, you don't want them to come in and just continue to do the same thing that has been done. You know, they want them to come with a fresh perspective.
Correct.
And to look at it from utilizing the technology that's around them and come with something new that can solve, as Nigel indicated earlier. You understand? So that is one of the main aspects of trying to encourage young persons utilizing the investment fund to get involved in agriculture. And I see it every day. Young persons come in and they start in the initial phases where they're trying to look at various technologies to try to solve problems. They investigate the various sectors, determine what the challenges are, and they are tried. But from the standpoint of the research assistance as it relates to the research that they need to put into it, it takes some time to develop in that aspect. And again, I try to direct them in the various resources that we have locally that they can access from different expertise.
Do they have to bring in any equity into the well, I don't know, it's a loan or
from
now?
Now that is the one of the most crucial parts about the EVE. The EVE is really to solve that equity contribution problem, the problem that a lot of the young people have not really acquired, much wealth or assets or that sort of thing, and so there's not much collateral to, offer the bank to say, let me access a loan. So the idea is you have your business, it's innovative, it solves the problems. Basically, you check all of these boxes, but you don't have access to collateral. Then we say, because your business is such a good prospect, we will make an investment in that business.
Okay.
You see? So we invest up to $50,000.
Okay.
And added to that, there's a 7-year tax break.
Okay.
Right? Which means your income is not taxed for 7 years. And there's certain concessions that you get on imports to help you. And the idea is all in an effort to incubate young businesses, to sort of modernize a lot of the things that currently happen here. So that's why it's very important for any agricultural minded young person to try to pull a business plan together, come up with a viable problem solving solution, and
but in terms of say land, okay, that finance that you're going to be assisting him with, is it available for him to purchase land?
No.
So any young person coming in, you must have that base. You must have land.
It would, like Nigel mentioned, that it's up to $50,000 that the investment would be. So a project that would involve land purchase would most likely go beyond $50,000 in terms of the investment. In such a situation, we would probably look at a combination of the equity fund and
loan.
debt financing, loan. We look at the combination. Now, if land is involved, the land in itself can be utilized as collateral. If it's been purchased, it can be utilized as collateral. So we'd have to look at it from both debt and equity financing.
But so that service is available?
Yeah, it's available. Yeah.
Because that's one of the problems, I mean, as you would know, is the availability of land for the young. That's why the Youth Agri-Entrepreneurship Program, you know, the government has made land available, and that's where you're coming in with that funding for, I mean,
to support the working capital
and stuff like this. But how do you see this that project, since it's coming under your care? How do you see that project in terms of our food security? Yes, the food security project.
I think the basis for the program is such that we're facing a food security problem. I mean, the vast majority of the agricultural farmers, the producers mainly, are aging.
That's right.
And there seems to be no sort of continuity, no passing on of skills and that sort of thing. So the thinking is that let's try to see how we could recruit, young, fresh blood into this, so that, we could at least empower them, give them the start, and help them contribute their own zeal, and their ability to manipulate technology and all of the things that youth brings into it to sort of expand our own production, and build capacity in agriculture. So yes, I think there are lots of prospects. I think depending on the character and the commitment of these individuals, we can have some real impact in the sector.
But do you prefer to work with groups or just individuals? For example, if a group of, say, 10 youngsters who decide they would want to come together from a cooperative, and would you all take them on and would you all facilitate, for example, financing for training of those youngsters?
To answer the question on training, yes, we would provide financing for training. But one of the things I want to bring you back to in terms of, we're looking at it at the level of young persons coming in and we're facilitating the financing for those persons to come in. But if we have to take into consideration the broader scope, because it's not just coming into the agricultural sector and getting involved in whether it be crop production, whether it be into the fisheries sector and so on. It's not just about that. But we have to go and look at it in terms of the value chain, in terms of demand, whether they have the market in place or whatever it is that they're going to produce. You understand? In terms of the technical assistance and these aspects. So the agricultural sector on a whole, which is one of the things since we've been reestablished and been involved in the sector again, is that what we've been trying to push is ensure that we forge collaboration with all the various stakeholders. We don't operate in terms of financing in isolation. One of our key elements is that we try to get involved. We try to maintain that communication, whether it be the Ministry of Agriculture, whether it be with purchasers, and so on. So we need to cooperatives, various groups, and so on. So we're always in communication with this group because you need to have a broad understanding.
So as far as agriculture is concerned, is there a relationship? You'll understand exactly what they're doing. The marketing unit, you'll understand what's happening. Yeah,
exactly. To put it that way, we've been forging that relationship. So we have communication with the extension services, various departments within the Ministry of Agriculture, where you could call up and find out, exactly what is the situation with this part of the industry, what's going on, if there are any changes, poultry sector. We talk to the processors, we talk to the ministry, so we talk to feed suppliers. So it's something that you need to understand what is happening in the industry as a whole, and we cannot just treat an individual coming to us as an isolated situation where we're just financing them, because you need to know what is happening outside of the sector, because they are part of a value chain basically. So they're just the raw producers. But what happens when they're ready to sell? What is happening with the purchasers? What are their policies? You understand? So
are you getting that kind of information? To make that decision that you need to make. Business decision.
Yeah, we are. I'm not going to say that it's at its strongest point, but it's something that we're working towards, and I think we're doing a good job at it so far.
Hold that point. Again, we are due for a break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Yeah, that's a crucial.
Saint Lucia is blessed year-round with an abundance of fruits. But do you know that most of them go to waste? Here's an opportunity to invest either from a small to a large-scale agro-processing enterprise. You can contact the Ministry of Agriculture for further information.
Welcome back to the program. What are the challenges you all face in ensuring, forging that relationship between the bank and the agricultural sector and, of course, the fishing sector?
I would say generally there are times I think we could have a lot more in terms of stakeholder meetings and so on, encourage a lot more of that. I mean, the poultry sector has been doing a very good job at that. Okay. In terms of holding stakeholder meetings and inviting the various persons involved in the industry, and you get a lot of feedback from the poultry sector. Okay. The crop producers, vegetable producers, I think that's something that we can work on, strengthen that area as well. Mm-hmm. You still find, and it would take us back, it would take the conversation back to when persons approach us for financing, that some of the requirements, some of the things we look at, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of the experience, but apart from the experience, in terms of evidence of their income or evidence of their sales, especially for vegetable producers. Now, a lot of producers, they sell on the local market through vendors and so on, and these are normally cash transactions, as it may be. Right. And when they approach us, they tell us that they sell on the local market, but it's difficult to provide us with that evidence as to the income. So it's kind of difficult to gauge where that individual stands as in terms of their production. Other individuals, especially those that are part of cooperatives, which is why I would say that it's not that we'd isolate those individuals, but it makes it a little more difficult to gauge in terms of their expertise, in terms of what level of production they're at. You understand? But as opposed to individuals who work through cooperatives generally can provide you with some statement as to the sales. Right. One of the stronger points of bananas was that they can get an actual statement. Right. You understand, the sales for the entire year. These are the kind of things that. So groups have their advantages in the sense that even in terms of payment. Instead of looking for individuals all over the place, if they go through a group. So there's that collective bargaining kind of arrangement where they can it has its advantages.
There's a problem with the sale of produce to, say, the hotels and the time they take to pay the farmers. The farmer has to pay you, say, I don't know what's the arrangement, whether it's on a monthly basis or whether it's on a per crop ending of a crop cycle, I don't know. If the hotel takes 3 months, 4 months to pay, I mean, how do you work this out? I mean, the farmer needs monies to keep his production cycle running. Are you going to have a buffer to absorb that, to assist him in that regard until such time you'll get that money from the hotel?
That's a very good question and observation. I think that problem has been facing farmers for quite a while, and not just farmers but small businesses on a whole. It's alleged that some hotels take quite a while to pay back.
It's a fact.
It's a fact. well, yeah. But I'm pretty sure there are some properties that do pay well within a reasonable time frame, 40 days or so. And I think it takes the argument back to treating agriculture as a business.
That's right.
If you operate in a business and you're supplying somebody that takes 90 days to pay you back, maybe you need to revisit your credit policy. Maybe you need to redirect, start selling to individuals that pay you in quicker, put a mix in terms of, because it boils down to cash management. Right. So you need to put a mix, sell a portion to the hotels that probably may take you 90 days, or sell a portion. But you need to understand it's a business that you operate in, and you need to make these kind of decisions. Okay. It's not something that the bank will make for you, but you need.
Well, I think to add to that point, I think looking at your project and what type of produce you vend, you sell or to who you sell it to. I think you're in a capacity, you have advised certain clients on how they ought to manage their receivables and where. So I think in-house I think we have the capacity
Yeah.
to give some
Give some
direction.
advice,
Part of the support
Yes,
that we
yes,
offer.
yes,
yeah,
yes.
On
in terms of
how
working.
you could arrange your business, so to speak.
The trough just passed through, and we have some disasters. Okay, for example, there is this farmer up in Mac. He has been, into poultry production, very close to a riverbed. Yeah, and would you all finance a project like that, knowing fully well it's very vulnerable?
Well, that is another good question. One of the things that for our productive sector loans, one of the things that we carry out is sort of an environmental assessment of the project. And these are some of the things that are going to be highlighted in the environmental assessment. When we visit the site, that's why I said before, the project is actually, before we consider it, we have to visit the site. And these are some of the things that we look at in terms of whether it's prone to certain disasters, whether it affects vulnerable groups, and so on. So our environmental assessment would basically cater to that.
Okay. If, for example, for some reason a disaster hits one of your clients, okay, and it wipes him off, and of course he cannot afford to pay, right, and he has to start all over again, is there room for refinancing, or you all are rigid in terms of, look, find money else to pay me? What's the situation with that?
One key aspect in terms of, and something that I want to bring out before the program ends, is that when it comes to financing projects and persons who deal with lending institutions, they need to ensure that they maintain a communication with the loans officers. If you're working with your loans officer, or working with your bank in the case of SLDB, communication is key.
Okay.
Once we are aware of what your situation is, what is going on with you, you need to inform us, update us, not just isolate. Something goes wrong with you and then you disappear. No, it doesn't work so. If you communicate with the bank, then we can facilitate any provisions that need to be made as it relates to your account.
Okay.
In most cases, we've had past incidents, I think in 2010, and a lot of other incidents weather related. We had a few banana farmers and so on. We restructured the loans, extended the grace periods, and these are things we do in terms of farmers coming on board. If they're into vegetable production, for example, and we know short-term crops, that's the intention of the project, we would give them a grace period, deferred payments for about 3 months.
Okay.
Anticipate when they would be getting back revenues and so on.
Final words for me because we're ending.
Well, I'm very excited about the Youth Agricultural Entrepreneurship Program. I think there are lots of possibilities. I think it might be a solution to our food security issues. Okay. And I'd like to encourage the entire island to hop on board and give the youth as much support as possible.
Anything final from you?
Well, what I'd like to say is that I think the starting point for persons interested in agriculture should be to come to the SLDB, call us, or contact any of the officers, agriculture-related officers, and let the concept or the ideas, or if it's already existing project, let that develop from here.
Okay.
It's all about relationship building.
Definitely.
So that should be the start.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming to the program. I think it's a very exciting program, and I'm hoping that the young people out there will hear this program and give them a bit of, impetus to come to you and to ensure that they can get themselves well entrenched in the system. Garvin, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Faisal. You've been watching Agriculture on the Move. I would like to thank you for viewing and continue to view this program on a weekly basis. Don't forget the peri-urban gardening tutorial program, which is coming after this program every week. Again, thank you for watching. I'm Phillip Sydney saying goodbye and see you again. Yeah, man, thank you very much.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole en mouvement.